Hey, welcome to Tractor Time with Mr. Mick, and we have a new book tonight, The Journey of Allis the Tractor by Layla White. And I didn't know there was any Allis books out there, but I got this one from Chris Bjerkley. He found it for me. And since we're reading that, I thought I'd dig out this tractor right here. This is a WD-45 toy that I got in August of 2017 at the Park Rapids in Tractor and Engine Show. And a fellow had it there at a flea market, and I looked at it and I really wanted it, but I thought I don't need to buy a tractor today. But we got back to the car and my wife said, "You better go buy it, your birthday's coming up." So I ran back and bought this nice Allis Chalmers toy. It's a really beautiful toy. So our book tonight, The Journey of Allis the Tractor. Hi, I'm Allis Chalmers. The first thing I can remember was being rolled off the assembly line in the tractor factory in Milwaukee, Wisconsin in 1950. Wow, was I something to see. I was bright orange with all new parts down to my black, shiny rubber tires. I was ready for a home. They shipped me to Bishop's Tractor Store in Webster City, Iowa, which is right in the middle of the United States between Chicago and Omaha. It was spring here and the farmers were ready to plant their crops. Maybe somebody needed me. While I sat there, Farmer T and his wife and their 5 children, Elton, Leonard, Irvin, Layla, and Charlene, entered the showroom. Here's hoping they pick me. How could they resist? I'm pretty good looking. I'm more efficient than those horses he had. The old steel wheel tractor he had was really tired and worn out. Not to brag, but my ride is smoother and safer with my rubber tires. I know Farmer T loved his horses, but I'll be faster. That old black horse Prince sometimes talked back to Farmer T and stopped right in his tracks and refused to move. After looking at me, the family pulled back and whispered among themselves. I knew Farmer T needed me. Mrs. T wondered if they could afford me. And I heard Farmer T say, I can't afford not to buy Allis. We have 5 children to feed. I need to farm more land. Let's take Allis home. Here I go on my big adventure. And there they are looking at Allis in the tractor store. Spring. That spring, Farmer T started to teach me what farming was all about. First, Farmer T and I would plow the field. Then we would disc the soil, which is the process of making the soil finer. Finally, I pulled this neat little planter full of corn or beans. The planter dropped the seeds into neat rows, covering them as well. It wasn't long before we would see long, straight rows of young plants popping through the soil. What a joy Farmer T and I felt knowing that our efforts were successful. Our next job was cultivating, which is removing the weeds from between the rows. Farmer T and I could do this, but the weeds or stray plants in the row would have to be removed by hand. I felt so sad just sitting there watching Farmer T and his kids walk those rows and cut out what did not belong. They looked so tired and sweaty. Every so often, you would hear one of the girls scream when they found a big black and yellow corn spider. When this was finished, the family would need to rely on their faith in God, hoping and praying there would be just the right amount of sun and rain for a good fall harvest. And there they are, the family working in the field, picking out the weeds. In summer, we needed to cultivate and fertilize. Farmer T and I were busy in the fields one day trying to finish our work before the rain started. In the summer, the weather can be very unpredictable. A high wind or tornado could appear without warning. On this day, Mrs. T and the children were near the farmhouse, which is nestled between 2 groves of trees on the north and the west. These trees block the winter winds, but also block the view. Sure enough, black clouds started to roll to the north behind the grove of trees. Farmer T and I could see them since we were in the field. Suddenly, a funnel of twisting black clouds appeared. Farmer T shouted, "Let's get home quick, it's a tornado." We got on the gravel road and my throttle was wide open. Farmer T was standing at the wheel shouting, "It's a tornado! Get the cows in the barn and get into the cellar!" Farmer T drove me into the corn crib, and I saw the tornado cut across the pastures where the cows had been. It had headed straight to our neighbors, and it took off the roof of their house and tore out trees and destroyed a building. But thankfully, the families escaped with no injuries. In the backyard of the house was a huge crabapple tree. I remember one year the grandchildren were home on summer break from school. The tree's spring blossoms had turned into apples and were ready to be picked. Before I came to the barn, the picking was different. The boys had to climb in the tree and shake the branches while the girls held a blanket to catch the precious fruits below. But now Farmer T and I could take the older grandkids one at a time and lift them up in my front loader and let them pick the apples. There Alice is letting them pick the apples. You've got to love those grandkids, always making my work fun. One day, Farmer T and I needed to pick up the cow poop in the pasture. Cows would leave their poop in neat little piles called cow pies. It's yucky, but it's good fertilizer. Those cow pies would be thrown into the manure spreader to be spread evenly over the pasture so the grass would grow lush and green. The oldest grandchild, Greg, drove by that time and thought, what a fun job. Greg's sister, Liana, heard about the adventure and ran out to catch up with me and Greg. After seeing his sister running toward me, Greg put me into high gear. Manure was flying high in the sky, spreading evenly over the pasture and also over me and his sister. Mrs. T and their mom, Layla, could see the scene from the house. When we returned, I could see them trying to hide a grin as they told us to stay outdoors and clean up. There he is with the manure spreader. In the fall, it is time to harvest the crops before the snow fell. One fall, the neighbor was working in his field and he was hurt very badly. So badly that he could not continue with his harvest. So within minutes, all the neighbors knew of the accident because of that contraption on the farmhouse wall. I later learned it was a telephone with a party line. If you had an emergency, there was a special ring to get everyone's attention. All the neighbors, including Farmer T and I and all my cousins, came to help. Some of my cousins are green, John Deere, and red, Farmall, and another orange one like me. Did we ever work together? We saved his harvest. What a cool feeling. We even got our picture on the front page of the local paper, the Freeman Journal. There's two of the tractors coming to help. Oh, the fall. It was great to be part of the harvest. There were big machines for harvesting all the crops. I need to tell you of my favorite harvest story. In the summer, the wheat fields look green, like a green and wavy ocean, but in the fall, the wheat turns golden. First, Farmer T would hook up the binder and would drive me along the wheat, picking up the wheat. Then it would disappear into the binder. Like magic, the bundles of wheat were tied up and thrown out the side of the chute of the binder. The bundles of wheat were collected by Farmer T's 3 sons and stacked into piles to dry. These stacks were called shocks and actually looked like giant mushrooms. In my imagination, I could see little gnomes playing in those shocks. Another job well done. There he is running the binder. Winter. In the winter, the fun started, at least for the kids and grandkids. One Sunday after church and a big family dinner, I waited in anticipation. Sure enough, here came the skis and the sleds. Farmer T would attach a rope to my hitch. Starting with the younger ones, Sean, Kent, and Donna, I would pull them on a sled around the snow-covered barnyard. When the yips and giggles died down, usually because the cold had gotten to them, the older kids wanted in on the fun. The ditches along the country roads were filled with snow, making a perfect surface for snow skiing. The kids would grab the rope as I went merrily down the road. watching some stay up and others tumble into the snow. After the day's excitement, Farmer T would tuck me in the shed, knowing we'd see each other the next day. He would clean me, grease me, and replace the worn out parts of me, always thinking ahead to next year. That's part 1 of the journey of Allis the tractor. Tomorrow night we're going to finish up with part 2.